about tonight was what we do commercially with excluder management, and it has a very close to what you would do with a flow hive as well, where you're managing a hive under an excluder. So I thought I'd talk about that, and then I'd take you through a little journey of where we work and how we do it, and some of the places we go in Victoria. So I've sort of split it into two parts, and I hope you find that interesting. We certainly enjoy getting around to different places in Victoria and New South Wales. My family have been involved in beekeeping for about 100 years, so we've sort of gathered a bit of knowledge, I suppose you could say, along the way. My grandfather was quite a large commercial beekeeper going back in the 20s and 30s. Very different to what today, right in the height of the Depression is when he was trying to get the business going. So very, very different to what it is today. But we run, my wife and myself, and we've got 3 employees at the minute. We run around 1,200 hives. We're based out of Wisley, which is just sort of 19 k's north of Bairnsdale. And our operation, we go statewide and into New South Wales, which you'll see later.
Have you noticed from when your father did beekeeping, or grandfather, noticed a change in the honey flows and things like that? Any significant change? Or?
Yeah, look, I think there has been enormous change over the time. If we look, and I'll start here in South Gippsland and clover. Clover in even my early days, going back into the 70s and 80s, is extremely different to what we've got today. And if we look at South Gippsland, the Maffra irrigation area, the southwest of Victoria where I worked a little bit, and basically a lot of that change has been created by the use of fertilisers that we see today, and the broadacre use of urea or nitrogen fertiliser, which changes the productive cycle of clover and what it actually does. That, to our business, that's made a significant change, because we used to use down here at Foster and Fish Creek and through there, and we use the Maffra irrigation area every year to build colonies and do that. I haven't had our whole operation based on clover for 15 years. We wouldn't have had a full load of bees on clover for probably 15 years. So we virtually pulled right away from it because it's basically uneconomical for us to work, so we've gone and looked at other avenues. Our forest systems are changed dramatically. And if you think from my grandfather, pre-chainsaw, pre-bulldozers, the mechanised era as far as timber harvesting goes, our forests pre-then were quite old and ancient. Today we have forests that have been clear felled and timber harvested extensively. So our forests are a lot younger age. Therefore, if you look at a forest that's dominated by young trees, it doesn't go through its reproductive cycle the same. So the honey flows and the flowering is a lot further apart and significantly further apart. Areas that have been clear felled out are probably no good to us for 40 to 50 years. So, it significantly changes. Other significant changes, the Murray-Darling system. Since we've built dams with huge capacity, we've altered the natural flooding regimes of rivers, and you look at basically everything that runs the west of the Divide and down the Darling. The red gums used to be, really quite frequent honey flows. You could pick it at the top of the Murray or the bottom or the Lachlan or the other river systems. Now that doesn't happen anywhere near, and it's because we've changed the natural flooding regimes of those rivers by locking them up in dams, and I think it's pretty silly what we've done there in a way when we look back, and we're sending huge volumes of water down in December to grow crops of rice, and that's okay and all that, but we've certainly changed, and you've only got to look at the health of those river systems we're trying to do now, in which we travel.
Yeah.
Our truck, one of our trucks, which you'll see in a minute, its gross vehicle mass is about 33 tonne, and you flick the cruise control going down the freeway, and that's how it travels with 30. Now, we would have never dreamt of doing that. You know, so they're just, and the speed of transport, we can load bees in, say, Bateman's Bay, and we can have them in Robinvale, and that's 12 hours with the truck turned on, or we cart them out of our home and end up, say, over on the South Australian border with 9 hours. And look, you wouldn't have dreamt of doing that, 20, 30 years ago. The freeway system in Melbourne's accounted for a lot of that too. The tunnel, what was 2 hours, is now at nights barely 3/4 of an hour from, or it's an hour from, say, Officer to Corner Park or something. So, I think maybe the first time I come down here, we talked just a little bit about excluders and what I do in South Gippsland. If I was living down here, I would run excluders on the second box because it's too, what I call, riskier environment to run them on the bottom box. You run out of stores too much. If you just make a misjudgment, you'll starve your hive very quick. But commercially, we run all our excluders on the bottom box because we just run different systems. We use all what we call as wire excluders. We don't use any plastic. They're just the plastic are too slow and hard to work, and they're too hard on your back when you're lifting tonnes of honey a day. So, yeah, the wire excluders. Our first spring management with an excluder would be to pull that comb, which would have come out of the outside wall on this side, and we put a gap in the middle. We check the brood, we check the queen, see the queen's laying okay, see the brood, there's no disease there of any sort, and we just get a general feel for how the hive's going. So that's our first spring movement. That's another look at. You can see plenty of bees, they're doing nice. They've got the warmth there, so they're going to cover the brood. We haven't split it when there's a shortage of bees that you'll chill the brood, which you've got to be careful of. That would be up in the Mallee, probably end of August, first week of September. All right? Yep. And you can see plenty of bees. I'll talk about some of the codes on the hives in a minute. Yep, if you go to the next one. There's our brood check. And you can see really healthy brood. A great queen that's laying really, really well. Nice tight pattern. Very few holes in it. And you tilt it up to the sun, and you can look into the bottom of all these cells here to see if there's anything disease-wise there, any decayed larvae. So, yeah, really important. You can see nice pollen, super conditions. And yeah, the young queen laying out really, really well. Right, the next one would be round about in a fortnight's time or thereabouts, just depending on weather conditions, fortnight, 3 weeks. We would go and we'd take the outside comb out of there, the outside comb out of there, split it, and put 2 new combs in there that had been drawn out, white foundation combs, and then we'd be looking, we'd have 8 frames of brood there, nearly wood to wood. So you're starting to get a pretty good hive on the go. We would be doing disease checks again, and these 2 numbers down the bottom, that photo was taken recently. I know we keep a log of every load we've been to, so I know we would have went through that hive twice in September, and then I know we put those new boxes out in November, and then I know by the writing I've been there and I checked that hive for disease again in January sometime. Check the queen, just a general check, and then I've done my last autumn inspection in the 4th month. And that's when we've got different guys going. I might have Ben going to one load. If he goes there, he can see I've checked off that hive, that's okay. He doesn't need to check it. The other code there is the breed of the queen, the year of it is, the genetics. So I can walk up and I know it's this genetic type, how old it is, and what, whether I bred it or someone else has. So that's a C for one of mine, and I know it was done in the 6th month of or the 6th year, which 2016 it is, yeah. So as soon as we walk up to a hive, we've got this visual picture of what it should be. And when you get good at it, it's become second nature to you. Yeah.
Ian, when you pull those frames out, what are they feeding on? Month's time.
Sorry?
What are they feeding on when you pull those frames and put them back in? What have they got to?
They were on white mallee.
Okay.
And really doing well. Yeah. Probably putting a box of honey on about a fortnight apart. So a really good honey flow. Yeah. Doesn't happen everywhere. Now, what I thought I'd do is take you on a little journey to where we go and some of the things we do. That's our truck and trailer outfit. There's 290 hives on that, all loaded with that forklift. I built that forklift that's on the back. It's a little 4-wheel drive off-road forklift, little baby telehandler. It's about 20 odd years old. We've only just pensioned it off, sort of thing. Yeah, a bit like me. But anyway, that's our main truck that we do the bulk of the long distance work with. And a trailer, that's what you call a triaxle pig trailer, and it's 10-tonne capacity. Now away we go. That load of bees left wisely and woke up in the Mallee and just south of Robinvale. Now, the day we turned up, there'd been an enormous windstorm through, and if any of you ever seen mallee dust, what mallee dust is really like, and you can see here all the wind drift in the paddock, and it nearly half buried that fence. We went up this road, or track it is, up the side, and we had at least 3 or 4 k's down there, but the sand was just horrendous. Yeah. And that looked across that paddock. That paddock now has all got cos lettuces in it. Right? So it shows you what water and that does in that region. A lot of Victoria's carrots that we know just come from down the road there. The Murray River's about 3 k's across from there. So you get this real sandy belt. And in that country grows a little turnip plant, and it's wild turnip. And that's the very first of our pollen and protein that kicks our bees off. So, all right, so we've done that load to there. Now, another place we take bees to breed them ready for almonds again. This is the bottom end of the big desert. Now, any of you know the Murrayville-Niln track? It runs parallel with the South Australian border. Well, the Murrayville track is that line of bush you can see over the other side of the paddock, and the South Australian border is just out here, so we're not far from the South Australian border. What we're chasing there is the desert banksia, pretty close to our coastal saw banksia here, but it's only a little bush from that, that height to that height. But the cob structure we'll have a look at. That's what we're working, very similar to what we see here on the coast.
So that's for pollen as well?
Yeah, they get enough nectar to survive. Sometimes I'll put a box of honey in, but it's mainly the protein of the pollen are after, very high protein pollen. So the bees are in great condition to go into almonds. But the problem you have in that country is the sand. It is horrendous. Now, we hire that cat tractor, which is on tracks. Huge machine, I think it's 800 horsepower. And we tow the triaxle trailer into the sandier spots. So we unhook the trailer and then we reload the truck onto the trailer and tow them in, sometimes sort of 5 k's into the sandier areas where the banksia grows. So I think there's the forklift and we've just got half that load ready. I'll show you the next one. I actually hired that, and it's a 4-wheel drive John Deere tractor, and I actually bobbed that in the sand. So that shows you what the sand's like. And just a revolution of the tyres, and it's like being on a sand hummock, and you just go straight. I just took that down to the ribs, and I said, that's it. So I unloaded all the trailer, and of course it'll pull it out then without the weight. But yeah, treacherous country to work in. And you can see in the background the little sand hummocks that are left in the banks here, little bushes there. But great for building these to almonds. Yeah. All right, we'll leave the South Australian border and we'll go to Bateman's Bay. Now, that's spotted gum honey. Bees, that was about 4 years ago, and bees did fantastic. We had a great run up there. And you can always tell spotted gum honey if you can you see the strings? When you pull it apart like that, it just all hangs together. And it's one of the bloodroot species. Yeah, so it's really messy to work. You get it up your clothes because it just doesn't pull off and break like a clover or most other eucalypts. Yeah. So, yeah, and we work that sort of from Narooma up to Bateman's Bay and sort of along the coast there and just back into the hills a little bit. Some beautiful, beautiful forests to work in. It's just stunning environment. It's fantastic. So yeah, those bees went in that condition from there to the almond orchards. So we go up over the Clyde Mountain, out through Canberra and then to Yass and then out through over the Hay Plains to Robinvale. And that's 12 hours of a truck running. So it's probably the longest one drive we do. They're long enough when you've spent 12 hours non-stop. Yeah.
So how often do you stop when you're shifting?
We run, I've done some of that on my own, but your logbooks maxed out when you get there and you had it too, you've got nothing left. But doing that now, I run 2 drivers all the time, and with the sleeper cap, we alternate 2 or 3 or 4 hours in and out at a time. One will go over and have a sleep and the other will drive. Yeah.
And the bees travel well?
Yeah, the bees travel well. Like all our trucks are airbag suspension and the trailer's got load sharing suspension, so they ride very, very well. Yeah, all open entrance, we never lock anything in with the gates. I'll explain, there's another one, the shop and the truck, I'll explain that when we get to it. All right, so those bees left just out in Narooma and woke up in Robinvale at the orchard the next morning. And this is what they look like in the orchard. Now, we're contract to Select Harvest, and we talk of an orchard, the scale of it is something else up there. This orchard is 7 kilometres long and 5 kilometres wide, so they're huge orchards. Yeah. But the pollination, no bees, no almonds, so they don't get a crop. The farm gate value of almonds this year is expected to reach somewhere around $1 billion. So it's $1 billion industry that's totally reliant on honeybees, like a lot of our food is.
Hope you're skipping off a little bit of $1 billion.
Yeah, we do. Look, we get paid okay. It's nothing brilliant, but it's for us as a business, it's cash flow in August when we struggle to get cash flow out of honey. So it sort of fills a gap in a way. When you've got staff, it just helps pay the wages for a while. So instead of going backwards, we actually keep going. Yeah.
Is your percentage of pollination growing in your business?
Yeah, very much so. Over the years, our percentage of pollination to honey has gradually grown. It's probably when we get varroa in this country, we'll switch over. We'll probably do 80% pollination to 20% honey. Now, another crop we do in the northwest is canola. There were several thousand acres in this paddock. It's just huge. And it was just canola as far as you can see. The next one will show you the red sand. You can see the red sand that has grown on.
That's before the almonds, sorry.
No, after we come out of the almonds, that's the first crop that we work after that.
How far apart are you putting these leaves?
Sorry?
How far apart are you putting hives and your
In this country here, it's where you can get in with sand as the main drawback. And I think we had 6 loads of bees around that paddock, but sometimes you might only be able to put 2 because of access the laneways, we would never get the weight of vehicles that we can get here. You'll just get bogged and, you know, we're not in the process of doing that if we can help it. But
When you take them off the almonds, are you experiencing significant losses?
no, there's 1 year, I think they made a mistake with mixing some sprays or something. We seem to end up with quite a few dead bees on the ground. But there's a critical base about the strength of your hives when you go into homes. If you've got good hives, you come out with good hives and actually do really well sometimes. If you go in below a base strength, your hives will drop away and you'll end up with some pretty ordinary bees out of it. So it's critical you get that level of health, we'll call it, in the beehive. Yeah. But we can come out of almonds and we'll go on to that and we're straight on honey straight away. We're just going. Yeah. But yeah, that's just out of Manangatang, which is halfway between Sea Lake and Robinvale. So you're getting fairly well up into the Mallee. But, you know, I think those guys crop, I think, 25,000 hectares a year, those guys. So huge farms, huge farms.
So when you get any honey off that?
Oh yeah, we get quite a bit of honey off that.
You do get honey?
Yeah. It's a good crop. Yeah. The only trouble is you run into in that country is just there is about a 12.5-inch rainfall, I think, in the older language. So it's only a bit over 300 mil. So it's really, so drought is your enemy, and drying off and heat. You know, I've seen crops like that go from that yellow, and in 3 days there's not a flower left. You know, you might get a 30-degree day and hot wind, and it just chops the flowers, and that's the end of it. Yeah.
Ian, is watering your bees in this country a problem?
Yeah, it is. There's no surface water or very, very little surface water in any of that country. So we have to cut tanks and, artificially water them, so to speak. There's no, that used to be all channels, and you've heard the Wimmera Mallee pipeline. Well, all those open channels and dams now are all filled in or non-existent, and that's all piped water. So there's piped water we tap into, or troughs or whatever, and just pump drums or IBCs full of water, and then our bees drink out of them. Yeah, it's critical. In that country, that time of the year, a load of bees will drink about a 44-gallon drum of water a day. You know, it's dry, harsh conditions. Yeah, so you let them run out of water, and you're in all sorts of trouble. They'll actually die really quick, just like we do.
So can I just ask, when you drop the bees off, do you stay with the bees, or do you go back home, or what do you? It probably depends where you are, I guess.
Yeah, look, there's all the variables about it. We'll stop up there until we might have 8 loads of bees in the orchard, or we'll just go, we might do 1 in the morning and 1 at night, and then we might have a night off and only do 1 night for the night, and then we'll do 2. And it depends on weather conditions too. If you happen to get a cold break, you can get 2 done easier because you can load earlier and finish later. And then virtually we run by exhaustion. When we had it, we'll have a spell. So that's how it sort of runs.
Yeah.
So we work. And of course, young guys, they want to get home to their wives. And you don't like being away any more than you have to.
Yeah.
So we do it as quick as we can. But we've got a motel just down the road from there that we stop, and we've got a house up there that we rent as well. Yeah. So we've got a base. Yeah. But who's ever with the bees sleeps in the truck, and that's mostly my job. Yeah. So, but they've got full sleeper cabs and all that on. They're pretty comfy. You know?
How do you get an idea when it's going to be finished, when you're going to leave? How do you get going?
You just know.
You just know.
Yeah. It's a skill. You watch the, I'll explain a bit. As those plants grow, they grow pods, you know, the actual canola pods form. And you're watching the weather forecast critically. So if you know there's a length of pod like that or like this, and you've got a hot break coming up and starting to stress for moisture, and you'll see it all starting to droop, the leaves, we know we've got about 2 days left or 3 days left. Yeah, so you get to know it pretty well. You read the signs and you talk to the farmers, but you just know, yeah.
Well,
Another place we used to work a lot was the Riverina for Pastor's Curse or Salvation Jane. Now that's, most of those bees down in there were 4-deckers, so they're about this high. So, and they're just popping out of the curse. The curse was sort of up to tray level of the truck. And that was in its heyday before they released all the biological agents on it. And we rarely go over there now. We might take a load or two, but it doesn't produce the crops like it used to.
It's not toxic.
Look, there's a lot written about that. The quantity of honey you would have to eat, I think you've got to eat like 3 44-gallon drums of honey a month to have an impact. Now you're going to die of a sugar coma before you'll ever die of anything else. But yeah, look, it does have a toxin in it, but then lots of things have, you know, eggs and all that. You know, it's you got to be careful how some of this is written up. You know, the reality and yeah. But yeah, another time we go from the orchard back to this country. All right. Another time we went into the Pyrenees ranges. You know, through central Victoria, there's quite a range there, wine country basically. This is out of a little town called Moonbelt, and that's on yellow box. And we produced a great crop of yellow box that year. Once again, hot, dry country. When it dries off really quick. But yeah, a great run of honey out of that country. And probably if you're a judge of honey, that area produces the nicest yellow box honey in Australia, and by quite a bit. The beautiful, strong aroma, low in moisture, and yeah, magnificent.
And nasty bees.
Oh. They do get a little nasty on it sometimes.
How long would you stay in that area? Like, is that several months? And how often would you extract?
Those bees there produced a box of honey every 10 days to a fortnight, and we were there for about 6 weeks.
You're extracting on site?
No, we cart all that honey from there back to our facility at Wisley. Yeah. We don't do any work on site as far as extraction goes.
Just swapping boxes?
Yeah. So as what we do, that box was full down there, so we lift that up to there and put it empty underneath. So what's what you call under supering, right? And then when that's been under supered for say 10 days or 4, we'll come and take the top box off and then just do the same again. So that's the cycle we sort of work, yeah. But that was, I think we had 2 truckloads of these and nukes there, yeah.
So Ian, you send the bees up in the big truck,
Yeah.
and then do you have another truck follow with empties or something?
Sometimes we do, it just depends what we have. When we're that far away, we normally use the biggest truck and the biggest trailer just because of the distance. So we're carrying the biggest loads we can.
So you carry empties as well?
Yeah, we've usually got to come back and pick up them. Sometimes we might run a truckload of bees and a trailer load of empties. Yeah, just depends what space we've got or whatever. Other times we'll run another truck up with empties. Yeah.
So you don't have to spread the hives over great distances, you get it like that?
It depends on what you're on. Now, this year was so tough and a lack of resource that we split our bees up into lots of 40 or 50 at times, and even 20 or 30. Enormous amount of work. And once again, it's a judgment to what you think will carry in an area. Yeah.
What's the theory of, I don't understand the theory of undersupering as opposed to just adding a third box?
It's a way we use. One, it's sort of a safety issue that we don't leave the bees starve, that we can take that really full box. Now, if that's sort of 3/4 full, the bees will always come up and fill that and cap it right off. So we've got a totally capped box of honey, and this one might be 2/3. Now, if the honey flow finished through heat wave conditions, we know we've got safety of 10 or 15 kilos of stores there, so that the hive won't starve. Hence, you've got to be careful running excluders. down there that you don't starve your beef. We just took that box straight off and put it empty on the left. You want to be really careful that it doesn't finish through a heat wave or a big rain event and your bees have got no stores. This is probably about 40 k's south of Jindabyne, up on the Snowy River. So Kosciuszko is just over the side of there. You can actually look to Kosciuszko. That was on a white box, and it's really steep, rugged country. If you've been into McKillop's Bridge and Sugarbugan, yeah, well that's just on the top of Hamilton Gap. Right, and going, you know what it's like going down the side there. So we only run a little truck and then we board it up and dump these up on top ready to shift, because and we're out the other side, which is steeper again and really narrow, and there's only one place I ever get sweaty palms driving a truck, and that's there. It's pretty nerve-wracking. I say the look down over the side's about 5 k's, you know, and the roads are this wide. So we don't run that big gear down there. We've got a little 4-wheel drive truck that we run up and down the mountain.
Is this public land or private land?
This is private land,
Okay.
right? The next site down over the mountain is National Park, and we're in the park there. We had bees there. Yeah. So it was a mix there. The next, and that's looking just straight down over the Snowy River is out and around there. And the Silvan River is straight underneath here. Jindabyne that way and Orbost down that way. Another one up in the high country at Omeo. We extensively work that country because it's close to home.
What time of the year this is?
That was about April. And that's about as late as you can run in that country. It gets too cold. That's about 700 metres there, 750 metres. Anywhere in that 750 to 1,000 metres Anzac Day or thereabouts is about as late as you can work bees.
What sort of trees are
Sugarbugan over the side and down in the bottom, it's basically white box. All that bluey sort of rangey trees you see, that's white box of Eucalyptus albions. There's a little bit of red stringy bark when you get up, it'd be 600 metres, and a bit of longleaf box and a bit of yellow box right on the river. You'll notice the distinct difference. What else grows there? A bit of apple box too. I tell my guys working for me that I provide them a great office.
I was going to say.
They wake up and, you know, this is where they are. So we see some stunning things.
Yeah.
This was coming off Kirsten. Sometimes I'd get to the top of Mount Hoffman and I think, I just got to have a snooze for a while. And you'd wake up and the sun would be coming up and you'd have these fog-filled valleys. And it's just stunning. So this was 2003 in the height of the bushfires. We were leapfrogging bees in front of the fires all the time, and we had a few scary moments. My wife will tell you about pulling up in the truck and she thought the fire was right there, where the truck was getting covered in ash, I might add. It was pretty hairy. And she's seen all the forestry vehicles going out. She said, we better get out. They're going, it's all right, it's just a change of shift.
He has to sleep though, because we've been shifting bees for 3 nights. And so he'd actually gone to sleep. And I was sitting there awake, I couldn't sleep. And then, as he said, all these fire trucks started coming out of the bush. I'm going, oh my goodness, wake up here.
But it was really scary. I knew where the fire was. But you're totally smoked out. You can't see a thing. You know, it's pretty horrendous. Anyway, we dumped and we were taking the bees up in. We swapped from one mountain range to another down through the valley and up. And I put them out there and you see the brumbies in the back there. Yeah. And they often, you'd be working the area and you could clop up the track and the brumbies are there. You're quiet and they didn't know. They were quite easily scared. But stunning country, the white gums and the sunshine. All right, so we've taken you on that journey and we're back home. And I'll just explain, we've got gates on the truck and they're all fully netted, so they're bee-proof. And then we run a net over the top, so the whole combination, the bees can't fly because they're all open entrance, none of them are locked in. If you lock those bees in and did that distance, you would kill a lot of them. You would smother them. They wouldn't cope with it.
No.
They get too hot and that
Yeah.
hang on. So everything's netted and confined so we can fuel up. And the big thing is on the freeways now, if you get caught in a traffic jam or an accident, that's where you sit. You know, you've got nowhere to go. In the old days, you get caught at Dandenong, you'd drop in and behind an old factory and you'd stop there for a while and they clear the road and then away you go again. But you can't do that now, it's just gridlock. So that's why we run that type of system.
So do you have a truck full of, a net full of really angry bees when you get them?
No, look, as long as you've got a careful driver and he's not driving through every pothole he can find, and you've just got to watch when you go in the last little rough bit of a track, you don't just smash in there to try and make it as rough as possible. But these trucks today, and the suspensions are fantastic, you know.
So they're all happy?
Yeah, so they're all pretty happy, yeah. Out of 290 hives on that, we wouldn't get half a bucket of bees that dead deep in a bucket. That's all we get. So you kill, and most times they die that time of year. They fall down to the steel floor and they freeze. It's so cold. You know, that's another thing. When you work in those deserts, the frosts are horrendous. I've woken up in the truck several times. It's -7. You know, out in that country, it's cold. It just gets in like nothing else.
How do they cope with the change of, temperature?
Yeah, they adapt to it. Yeah, they, like in those sort of conditions out in the desert where it's really, they might fly for lunchtime and then they'll only fly till 2 o'clock in the afternoon, in from say, middle of May to early July. Yeah, so they've got a very limited window they fly. They're on that sand. It's like any sand, like a sand hummock. You get in against it and it warms up quick. Bitterly cold, but then it does warm up quick. It's not like being on clay or a black soil. All right.
Could I ask a question on the pollination?
Yeah.
Do we have sufficient contractors like yourself to service the almond industry? Because that, as you said, it's getting a huge industry now.
Well, they're talking about in the next little while, and I'm talking the next 5 to 10 years, a 30% expansion of the almond industry. What they'll have to do is literally pay more to source bees from further away, so you'll get more bees come out of Queensland or wherever. So guys will it'll become economical to travel that distance. So that's what will drive it. But by the time it's finished, it'll be taking up a lot of the available bees within southeastern Australia. It really will be. And I think they're talking something like around 300,000 hives for almonds by 2025.
Will
So
that
it's a lot of bees.
Will that increase honey production?
No, it'll decrease it to a degree. Because while those northern guys, say Dubbo and above, can actually get honey that time of the year, they'll swap over and pollinate again. So it'll make honey, I think, a little
So
scarcer.
it'll be more money in pollination rather than honey.
It'll have to, that economic scale will have to tip over. And if you look in the States, Varroa, different thing. We're getting $100 a hive this year, our contract. In the States, it's about $250 or $60. So it's a lot of difference. And it's one's because of Varroa and two is because of demand.
Because if it went to, say, 80% pollination, there would have to be a price adjustment, wouldn't there?
Oh, there would, and we'd have to chase a lot more crops too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, $100
Per hive.
per pollination period.
Per 4 weeks.
4 weeks.
We're contracted to select harvest for the month of August, basically.
Right, yeah.
And it comes and goes a bit, depends on the season, and it's $100.
Yeah.
That's for the 4 weeks per
Yeah,
hive.
yeah. Which, you know, it's economics, you take
Yeah.
it or leave it.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, I just thought I'd throw in a couple of somewhere different. This is actually in Canada, right? And there's 4 hives under that. And we talk about winters, and we've taken me out of the desert, and we think it's cold. When I was there, it was -22 and a -25 wind chill factor. So really, really harsh conditions. And these guys normally shed their bees, so they put them in a barn, but they are trying out new ways of leaving them in the open. And we shovel the snow off, and there the bees are underneath all the full packed insulation around them and all that. Yeah, so we think it's cold here. But it shows you what bees will survive. Yeah.
And they were moving bees.
No, they're stationary.
Oh,
Yeah,
no one
yeah.
they weren't dead.
Yeah. No, that's, you can see it's all.
Yeah.
And but they run very different systems to what we do. We chase the eucalypt forest, where they tend to leave their bees in one area a lot. Yeah. All right, so we'll come back home. We talked about the bushfires. Yeah, that was just out of our back door as a wind change sort of hit and blew the smoke away, and you could see the direct line of fire just in the range behind us. Then the wind changed, and it went like that. And that was midday. Yeah, that was pretty scary. You can hardly pick it up, but there's 44-gallon drums of water sitting on the lawn. There's a truck there, there's a ute there. There was a yellow car parked just outside the lounge room window, and it would be that far away, and it was just a silhouette. So the smoke was something else.
How do these cope with that much smoke?
They do one or two things. They abscond and just clear off out of the hives and go and hang up trees. They literally panic. Or they'll luckily sometimes stop in the hive and they'll hang out a bit. They're really nasty. You can tell they're stressed, really, really stressed. And water's the problem. If you've got them any distance from water at all, they're in all sorts of trouble. Yeah. And they stress and panic just like sheep or cattle, and they do silly things. You know. But I've seen them, like on the other string of trees, this bit just cover your bees up and down because they've panicked and they've absconded.
Do they come back?
No, once they usually abscond like that, they don't come back. So you've got one heck of a problem to fix. A huge loss, a huge loss. Luckily that year, even though we loaded in the smoke in the middle of the day at times, we didn't suffer huge losses. You know, the bees, you could tell they weren't the most healthy, but we didn't suffer the outright loss. In '83, I suffered some outright losses because of heat and smoke, and they absconded. All right, this is from our place, from fire to floods. You know, that's farmland where we had just taken bees out of, and the big East Coast lows. You know what happens to the East Coast, so we get some huge flooding at times. All right, that's the view from our place, and we get some beautiful sunrises and sunsets. And some of it's quite, you can see the fog in the valley, and it really was. So it's nice to be home. And we've got the little grandson. He's about, at that stage he was just over 2, and he talks really well. He said, we've got to go to the bees. He's always got to go and have a look at the bees. So I've often got a hive at home, and I take him down, put him in his bee suit and take him down. So, and we've got to pull the frames out, and we've got to have a look at the bees. So,
showing promise.
Yeah. So yeah, very good. And I just thought I'd look at here too. So last time I was here, we were paying tribute to Howard's life, and I think we'll think of what a wonderful man Howard was, and what he brought to us all, and what he's brought to this industry. So I thought I'd put that there and say thank you very much for inviting me back, and hopefully that's taken you on a little journey of how we live and what we do. So thank you. We basically run Italian stock of different strains. We buy in, it depends on the year. Say this year has been, a very difficult year to manage, extremely difficult. I've probably read 90% of our queens ourselves. So how we select that is we're going through those codes on the front, and I'll select 10 hives out of 1,000, and then I'll narrow it down to 2. So, and obviously we pick that they're nice and quiet, they're good, they're fast to handle, they don't sort of spook easy, they're good honey gatherers, they're not susceptible to chalk brood or anything like that. So we just do a genetic pick for the strongest stock we can, and then we breed off those. Yeah. So we're constantly doing that all the time to get the best genetics that we can get, and we buy in stock and evaluate that over a 2 or 3 year period, and introduce new genes into our bees, so we haven't got too narrow a gene pool. So yeah, it's something we're constantly mindful of all the time.
You mentioned, Ian, you touched on about, look at that. Yeah, sorry, you mentioned, you touched on it about running 2 brood boxes, if you say, in South Gippsland.
Yeah.
What other things would you do differently down here, just as a hobby beekeeper?
In this environment, you probably, because of your colder winters in a way, and then slow start out of the spring where your weather is very variable, you've got to be really mindful in that early bit how much honey you take off. So you've got to be, you'd be very cautious. And if I ran down here all the time, I'd certainly lift that excluder and put it up on the second box and just be processed. And just because patterns are too hard to read, and because if you're not shifting around, clover's a bit hard to read whether it's going to yield much honey or not. It's difficult. So therefore you take all the risk layer out of it that you have to, in a week's time, you'd be feeding all the time. So yeah, I'd run totally different if I was here, and predominantly that.
What about wintering now?
Yeah, wintering now, in just say this area here, I would probably look at shutting down maybe end of March, early April, and just consolidating it down to a double if I could. If it was quite weak or didn't have a lot of bees, I'd make sure I had 2 or 3 really solid frames of honey, totally capped. I'd put in a single and then close it into a single. But it'd want to be backing bees a lot before I did that. You know, the cluster would want to be only, say, so big.
Yeah.
Yeah. But if the cluster was, you know, that big, I'd make sure it was a double.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I often think it's like us in the winter time. Where would you pitch a tent, and where would you like to wake up on a winter's morning? And it wouldn't be in the shade, it wouldn't be under a tree, it'd be in a nice sunny aspect, sort of facing north. That's what I'd be critical of down here, that I got that right. I wouldn't have it in a shady spot behind a fence that was, you know, 90% shade all of the day. I'd have it out in the sun where I could.
Can I ask you a question about moving? I'm moving, my sunny aspect is about 20 metres that way.
Yeah.
And I've read that you can move them a distance if you whack a branch in front of the hive after you move them. Yeah. Does that work, you know?
Look, generally speaking, we've sort of got a rule. We either move them about 2 metres, or it's 2 Ks. Right. So that's what we like. If we're cutting off nukes and we're rearing queens, especially once you get to say October on, it's a minimum of 2 Ks. Otherwise, they'll fly back and land on the ground there. But if you're doing that, you could probably every couple of days or 3 or so days, you could say move a couple of metres at a time. Yeah, and you could gradually get down. That's if you had a sort of a summer spot, you might sneak them back here for a winter spot. But yeah, that'd be, if I was working down here, that'd be 2 critical things. I'd shift the excluder from the bottom box to the second box, and I'd make sure when you're wintering from April through to, say, October, that you had them in a nice sunny spot, even into November for this climate.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's the opposite in the Mallee. Once you get out of sort of September, you're looking for shade straight away. Yeah.
And if you're up to not do the 2 metres and 2 metres and 2 metres, and then you go, let's do 2 kilometres, how long would you leave them there before you move them back to the next spot?
I'd leave them 3 or 4 days, 5 days, and then bring them back. And that's probably the best option of what. if you can, of
You
course.
can take
Yeah, take them away somewhere then and then bring them back.
Packing down for winter, you'd have 2 boxes in Gippsland?
We try and leave, we've got the excluder. If they're in good condition, we leave probably nearly a full box of honey on top of the excluder, so we leave them a full box of honey. But then it depends what we've come off, like say this year, stringy bark, they've got a lot of bees in them, so it's a minimum of the box of honey. If we've come off iron bark and they've got no brood virtually, sometimes we'll push them into a single to keep them nice and warm. It depends what we're doing too. There's now and there's later, and you've always got to be mindful of the later.
With the iron bark, you're talking about for pollen?
Yeah, there's no pollen on iron bark,
Yeah.
so unless you've got something else like a sunshine wattle or some other plant or a tree yielding pollen, they'll gradually go broodless over a 4 or 5 week period.
Yeah.
And depends on what they've been on prior to that.
Yeah.
Like we'll try and get them on madder gums and things that they get heaps of pollen on,
Yeah.
and then go on iron bark.
Ian, I've got experience with an experienced beekeeper down on the peninsula. He won't use the excluder at all. He says that the brood will come in, the third box will come like a comb. If you have a 4th box, that's where the honey will be. So don't have an excluder at all.
Yeah.
Is that a flow situation, or is it's something that's quite strange that the queen will capitulate at the top of the 3rd box and not making more brood?
There's a lot of variability about it. The main reason we use excluders, they're just a management tool, they're nothing else. They're part of a beehive, they're like a lid or whatever. We use it so we've got no brood in the honey supers, not even any drone brood. And we can cart it home and we know we've got no brood, larva, anything in the honey super. My family traditionally used no excluders, and I was the first one to actually switch over to excluders. What bees naturally do, and all you guys would have seen this, where after doing it, the bees will naturally go up, and you can put 10 boxes on, and they'll keep going up, and they'll gradually shift their brood up over time, because they follow the heat. And that's all they do, and it's nature. They follow the heat. So, and it's only on a heavy honey flow where they'll put the honey up on top and then start to push the brood down. Right. So it's...
It could be a red gum honey flow that's causing that to...
Yeah, well, red gum is a really heavy honey flow, but they prolifically breed at the start of that when it gives abundance of pollen, and then just a little bit of honey, a little bit more, and they lay out big brood nests. So they'll follow up, and then as the honey comes in heavy, they'll push them down again. But on a heavy honey flow, sometimes they won't even put brood hardly in the 2nd box. They'll just have 2 little patches like that. Depends on your pollen source, and a lot of it depends on too the nectar, the moisture content of the honey. If it's a thin honey like clover, they'll come up chasing heat more. If it's a thick honey like that round leaf, they'll close in the brood nest. So the density of honey moisture content creates that variability.
I noticed you have them like blocks of 4. Is that because they're on a pallet? Or?
Yeah, everything we run is palletised. Like you'll never load those trucks by hand or without 30 guys. So everything's palletised, and we've been palletised for a number of years now. And it's just the volume or tons of equipment that we have to move. Without forklifts, you would never do it.
No particular reason.
No, it's speed of operation, and you would never get guys to do that sort of work. 30 years and 50 years ago, it was expected of people to do that, but not today. So, and there's OH&S, and rightly so too.
So, with the commercial side of it, is it in a good position at the moment?
This year was probably, in my beekeeping lifetime, which is 40 odd years, this is the worst year I've ever had, and not by 5% or by 70%. The worst year, just horrendous. And basically everything that could go wrong would with climate and weather patterns, and eucalypts not yielding honey. We just had a succession of it. So very difficult to manage and keep these in good condition, very difficult. Yeah, it tests out every bit of knowledge and skill you've got to keep them alive and keep them prepared in a condition that they could gather a honey flow when one come along. But really, really difficult.
So the industry, you think, is heading in the right direction?
Oh, look, I think so overall. Like any industry, challenges come and go. I think probably one of the greatest challenges we face is the importation of Chinese honey and what that's doing in the marketplace. Well, it's not even honey. It shouldn't be called honey because it's not honey. Most of it isn't. And what's that doing to the market price and the consumer credibility of honey, we'll call it, what's that's doing, you know, and that's probably one of the greatest fears I've got at the moment. Always other pressures like clear fell logging and nitrogen, you know, and clover. There's always change happening, you know. But
you stop the Chinese honey in any shape or form, you know, when it's in the shop as a way of picking it out?
oh, it tastes pretty ordinary.
Yeah, well, it's a bit hard from a...
So for a consumer, and unfortunately, our labelling in Australia, I think, has been pathetic. And it's only about to change July 1st. We're getting some better labelling laws. But it's typical. You pick up anything for that matter and it's made for, you know, Australian imported goods. Yeah. And that might be 99% imported, you know, which is just rubbish. Yeah. But we're suffering from that.
A lot of dairy farmers, well, around where I am and around most of this Gippsland, are only finding the change with clover. Like I'm finding seems to be a lot less clover in the paddocks now, and it's more the rye growers.
Yeah, well, I guess it changed sort of in the mid-90s, where a lot of nitrogen urea was used. Yeah, and it's decimated the clover populations, and even when you see it, it doesn't yield as well on average now. I think it yielded, according to Dennis, pretty well down here. Not this season, the season before, which you're lucky down here in a way. You've still got some broadacre beef country, but in the pure dairy country, clover's all but non-existent for us guys. Yeah. As a commercial crop, or even to build these aren't as healthy as they once were often.